Hello. Okay. Last week we discussed the prodigal son, the younger son. A lot of times there's not a whole lot said about the older son. We began by calling about our call to become a father, the father in the story. But last week we talked about the call to become the father without dealing with the prodigal son's nature. This week we're going to look at the older brother. We realized how the prodigal son decided he wanted his father to separate the estate, and something's wrong with his sound. It's echoey, funky. And he thought it would be, by him getting the estate, he's got all this money, that he would go out and do what he wanted and live his life the way he wanted to under his own laws. And basically ended up face down in a pig pen. But however, today we want to look at, now when he came home and his father seen him and he ran out with his arms wide open to welcome him back. Basically his father said he was dead and now he's found, he's alive. But as we go further into it and we look at the older son, when his father asked him to join the party, his heart became hard and relentless. And the reason for this was he didn't think he was treated fair. Now, as we went over last week's story, we all love a story of redemption. We like to see when somebody's picked up out to the gutter and lifted up. Amen? And we love seeing that stuff. Now I want to take a look at Luke 15, 1 through 3. Now the tax collectors and the sinners were all gathered around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. God's heart for the lost coin. She weeps. The whole house rejoices. The lost sheep, he leaves the 99 to find one and rejoices. The lost son, he waits and expectantly forgives and rejoices. Now, it might be enough to be in the presence of God's heart for the lost and the rebuke against the judgmental and uncompassionate attitudes towards sinners and tax collectors, but Jesus is amazing. Amazing in the show of grace. Reminds us the Pharisees of God's heart for them. He invites them into the party, into the celebration, into the right relationship with the God they thought they were serving. Now we're going to take a look at the older brother. And the little bit we talked about the other brother yesterday, we think the older brother's got it going on. Here he is, he's working a farm, he's working hard. He doesn't leave. He does everything his father asked him to. But he's doing it for the wrong reason. As we go into the story, meanwhile, the older son, this starts off in Luke 15:25. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard the music and dancing in the house. And he asked the servants, "What's going on?" Your brother is back, he was told, and your father has killed the calf where we were fattening and has prepared a great feast. We are celebrating because of the safe return. The older son was angry and wouldn't go in. His father begged him. But he replied, all these years I've worked hard for you, never once refused to do a single thing you told me. And in all that time you never gave me a young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering all his money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the finest calf we have. And his father says to him, look, dear son, you are very close, and everything I have is yours. We had celebrated this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, now he is found. Now this parable might be called the parable of the lost sons. Not only did the younger son, who left home to look for freedom in a distant country, get lost, but the one who stayed home was also lost. Externally, he did all the things that his son was supposed to do, but he wandered away from his father. He did his duties. He worked hard every day and fulfilled all his obligations, but became increasingly unhappy and unfree. Look at Scripture. Lost in resentment, the older son could be described well by Paul in Romans 1 when he describes the pagan nations. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as good nor gave thanks to him. But their thanks became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. For although he lived with his father, and he never really knew his heart, or gave him thanks for all the blessings, so instead he became bitter. You can hear the bitterness in his words when he says, all these years I have worked hard for you and never refused you to do a single thing you told me to. And all the time you never gave me even a young goat for a feast with my friends. You see, he did work hard, and he worked for his father, but he worked for all the wrong reasons. What he did for his father was out of an obligation. It didn't come from his heart. And anything that we do that doesn't come from the heart is not going to give us satisfaction. When the younger son returns, he offers him a slave. He offers himself as a slave to his father, and his father receives him as a son. The older son always has been a son, but he acts like a slave, not enjoying his father's pleasures in his work. His work is not out of love for the father, but out of the sense of duty to do the right thing. Now, although we love the story of the prodigal son, there are probably more of us in church who can relate to the older brother than the prodigal. Even if we were a prodigal son at one time, we have been home working for the Father enough now to know that bitterness, resentment, and judgment could easily have set in. Jesus tells us in a parable to help the Pharisees see themselves as far as from God's heart. If we look at Luke 18, 19 through 14, the Pharisees and the tax collector. To some who were confident of their own righteousness and took down on everybody else, Jesus told this parable. Two men went up to the temple to pray, and the Pharisees and the tax collector. The Pharisee stood up and prayed about himself. God, I thank you that I am not the other men, robbers, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. But the tax collector stood in the distance. He would not even look up at heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Now there's a story in Matthew 21:16. The story of the vineyard workers. Have anybody ever heard it? For the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a real estate, who went out early one morning to hire workers in his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a normal day's wages and sent them out to work. At 9 o'clock in the morning, he was passing through the marketplace and saw some standing doing nothing. So he hired them, telling them he would give what was right at the end of the day. At noon, and again around 3 o'clock, he did the same thing. At 5 o'clock that evening, he was in town again and saw some more people standing around. And he asked, You haven't been working today? They said no, because nobody would hire us. The owner of the estate told them, Then go out and join us in the vineyard. That evening he told the foreman to call the workers in and pay them, beginning with the last worker first. When those who were hired at 5 o'clock were paid, each received a full day's wage. When those hired earlier came to get their pay, they assumed that they would receive more. But they too were paid a day's wage. When they received their pay, they protested. Those people worked only 1 hour, and yet you've paid them just as much as us who worked the day scorching in the heat. And he answered one time to them, Friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage? Take it and go. I wanted to pay these last workers the same as you. It is against the law for me to do what I want with my money. Should you be angry because I am kind? And so it is that many who are first now will be last, and those who are last will now be first. Then, if you want to scream out that's not fair, then you probably have a bit of the older son in you. Grace is not fair. Grace treats people better than they deserve. But if we think that we have earned our place with God by being the good boy or the good girl, then grace to others is an affront to us. If we think that we have earned far more than God has given us, when God gives others a perceived greater blessing than us, our anger might top the richer scale. Those of you who have more than one child have likely experienced similar to this story here. She got more than I did. I know me and my wife, we ran into this around Christmas time. Raising 6 kids. We had to be real careful when we got kids. Because we are born, I mean, right out the get-go. We got some breed going on. It's in us. That's how right from the day we're born. We got that give me attitude. The same thing with kids. We had to be careful that we got everybody the same thing or something, or equal. Because the next thing you know, the one will be going, well, she got more than I did, or she got less than I did. They be complaining. And that's kind of what we ran into with the older son. The older son became bitter because he thought that the son that ran off and squandered his money was getting more than he was. We often talk about not letting the devil steal your joy. He doesn't have to let us. He doesn't have to if we let us build resentment up inside us. We are quite capable of stealing our own joy. So we don't need Satan to beat us down. We're doing a good job of beating ourselves down. How many times have we blamed things on Satan when we could want to turn around and we did it ourselves? Well, Satan made me do it. Satan can't make you do it. Huh?
It's a good excuse.
Oh yeah. Satan's always a good excuse. Because he's a jerk. We ignore the older son because the story doesn't have it. It doesn't have that fairy tale story ending. Yeah, I mean the prodigal son, he gets picked up out in the gutter and everything's good, he's having a party. It's not like that with the older son. But Jesus leaves it wide open. He says to the older son, or the older brothers, called Pharisees in the crowd, "Look, dear son, you and I are very close, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate the happy day for your brothers and your sisters because they were dead and have come back to life. They were lost, but they're found. Come join us in the party." Now the difficult is that in order to join the party, in order to feel the Father's love and embrace, they have to sit down to eat with sinners and tax collectors. You know, Jesus Christ did not have a problem sitting down with sinners and eating dinner. Returning with our heart when our feet never left. In the house of my Father, there are many places to live. Jesus says, each child of God, there is his or her unique place. All of them places of God. I have to let go of all the comparisons, all the rivalry and compassion, and surrender to the Father's love. This requires a leap of faith because I have little experience of none comparing love and do not know the healing power of such love. As long as I stand outside in the darkness, I can only remain in the resentful compliant that results from my comparisons. Now the younger brother seems to be more loved by the Father than, in fact, he's in the dark instead of being outside in the light. Because he looks at he's so far in the dark, he can't even see himself. He can't even see his brother he can't even see his brother as his own brother. God is urging me to come home, to enter into his light, and to discover that God, in God, all people are uniquely and completely loved. See, when you're in the light of God, you can finally see your neighbor as your brother, as the one who belongs to God as much as you do. But outside of God's house, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, and lovers and friends become rivals and even enemies, each plagued by jealousy, suspicions, and resentments. God's grace does not have a zero sum. He doesn't take some grace from one person and give it to you. It doesn't work like that. He lavishes grace on all of us and gives each of us more than we need. So we don't have to look over our shoulder to see if our brother or sister received more than we did. Responding in trust. Although we are incapable of liberating ourselves from our frozen anger, we can allow ourselves to be found by God and healed by the love through the create and daily practice of trust and gratitude. Trust and gratitude are the disciplines of the elder son. We need to find trust in the Father who wants us home. That when we leave, that even if we left in our hearts and not our feet, as the older brother did, he will come look for us. He will weep the whole house, and he will sweep the whole house until he finds us. Just as if we look at in Luke, the lady who lost the coin. She lights the whole house up looking for this coin until she finds it. God is willing to do the same thing for us. He will turn all the lights on in the world and sweep every inch of the earth until he finds you. Because he'll never leave you. Mark 11, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. We need to have an understanding that we are the Father's child. Each and every one of us is a child of God. He will give us what we need, but we need to trust him. The Father has offered his hand to us saying, do you trust me? Trust me that I love you as much in the field as in the house. That I am pleased with you when you are working for me and when you are resting in my presence. I love you with unearnable love. You cannot make me love you more. You cannot make me love you less. Do you trust me? You see, there is nothing we can do great enough to earn God's love. We can't do anything great enough to earn his grace. We are undeserving of both. He willingly gives that to us. because he loves us that much. There is always a choice between resentment and gratitude, because God has appeared in my darkness, urged me to come home and declare in a voice filled with affection, you are with me always, and I having yours indeed. I can choose to dwell in the darkness in which I stand and point to those who are seemingly better off than I am. Misfortunes that have plagued in the past, and wrap myself in my resentment. But I don't have to do this. There is an option to look in your eyes of the one who came out to search for me, and see therein that all I am and all I have is pure gift, calling for gratitude. Coming to the party. You see, we get to write the end of the story. If you see yourself in the older brother, you get to decide if he gives up his resentment and hurt, accepts the Father's grace, and enters the party. To do this, we need to give up the rivalry. Trust God, be good, and respond in gratitude, and we will join the party. The whole thing about this older son, in the example, say, me and Scott's the only one, pretty much I like to pick on standing in front of me. Say Scott, he goes out and he wins some money and he buys him a new Corvette. Now I got the choice, either I could be happy for Scott, or I could basically hate his guts because he won the lottery and bought a new Corvette. I have a choice which way to go with it. I can resent Scott for it, or I can love Scott. I can say, hey man, I'm glad for you. I can be glad for him. Many times in our life we see people that we feel has gained a gift from God, or something's happened in their life that pushed them forward. Where we still sit over here, wishing that we could get this or that, and we become hard. Our hearts become darkened and hard, and we get full of resentment. And next thing you know, we're showing hate against our neighbor, our brother, or family, because we didn't get exactly what we wanted, or we thought we deserved it more than they did. Well, when you live in the realm of Jesus Christ and the Father, it's not about who deserves it more. And I tell you one thing, the person that shows the resentment and the hatred, you ain't going to see a whole lot of blessings coming your way with an attitude like that. For one, your heart is so hard and closed, if there was a blessing right in front of you and you were tripping over it, you wouldn't see it. Amen?
Amen.
So as we leave here today, I just ask everybody to keep an open heart, open minds. And I ran into something the other day. I'm not going to mention who I was talking to. But however, it put me into my mind, because this particular person, everything, if he helps anybody, there's always something that follows. he never does nothing for anybody without him receiving something back or expecting something back. So I encourage anybody, go out there and just help somebody. I mean, it doesn't matter whether, if it's the old lady going out the store, coming out the grocery store that needs the door held open. Or you see a person walk into the car and they're having a hard time carrying the groceries. Offer a hand. Because you never know when you. Yes, Eastern. I forgot all about that. Think of it. Sheree was at the grocery store the other day. And this man you don't see this very often. She's standing in line and she's got her little wick thing, you know. And this guy that's right in front of her, he's paying for his groceries. He looks at her, she goes, "You don't have very much there, let me pay for that." And Sheree's like, "Well, but I got stuff to pay with right here." He goes, "I don't care. I want to pay for it." Now, this wasn't your average little wimpy looking guy either. This guy was like a bodybuilder. And didn't get it. My daughter, in fact, Sheree said straight out, the guy looked like a jerk. So that kind of goes with the story. Don't judge people by the cover. Okay, it's what's inside that counts. And you come find out, he told Sheree to have a blessed day. Come to find out, the guy was just coming home from church. This guy, if you looked at him and you was to judge him by his cover, you would have never expected in a million years to find him in church. So, as much as we look down on this earth and what's going on and how corrupt it is, and they're still good people. It's just a lot of times we have to open our eyes and see past that flesh. I often wonder how many times that I get off my bike and I'm dressed in my leather and my boots and my gloves and stuff like that, and people go, "Oh man, I ain't going there." I've actually had that happen. I had a lady, I pulled up to the gas pump, and she was parked in front of me. And she walked all the way around the other end of the pump to go in the store.
We have them do that to us in church when we come in CMA.
Yeah, CMA, we found in the churches of CMA. They will. In fact, one time I pulled up to a church, and I can't really blame the lady because here's a bike, two bikers pulling up.